You know, I love these real-world stories of the sheer incompetence of EVs. They cut through all the evangelist spin and net zero lies and present the grim reality of living with a battery-powered vehicle. We seem to have lost our collective ability to think rationally about anything these days, and somehow we're prepared to believe that waiting 3/4 of an hour for 500 kilometres range is somehow better than our current vehicle that can fill up enough diesel for 800 kilometres range in 5 minutes. Don't believe your lying eyes, just turn off your brain and accept the propaganda that your EV is better. So this story of a failed attempt to circumnavigate the United Kingdom in a VW ID Buzz van is both tragic and hilarious. And of course, after completing barely a fifth of the journey, the electric disaster was switched out for, guess what? A diesel. Welcome back to MGUY, British engineer and lawyer, now Sydney-based YouTuber. If you'd like to support this channel and display your anti-EV credentials to your Tesla-owning neighbours at the same time, why not buy some awesome MGUY merchandise, like this mug, this baseball cap, or this t-shirt. Each high-quality item sports the MGUY No EVs sign, and they're all made to order, perfect for irritating the hell out of your local EV zealots. Visit store.mguy.tv or click the link in the description to check out the full range of products. And of course, you can always just buy me a coffee. Click the link in the description or scan the QR code on screen. Why are we so prepared to accept the impracticality and inconvenience of battery vehicles? Why are normally rational people prepared to spend a fortune on a car that is so obviously inferior to their old combustion car? Perhaps some people genuinely think that they're helping to save the planet, which they're not, by the way, and some may believe that they need to switch to an EV before it's too late, a kind of fear of missing out. And some are just seduced by the propaganda and lies of governments infected with the net zero brain virus, constantly telling us that the world is moving inexorably towards an electric future and you shouldn't be left behind. Whatever it is, there are plenty of people who seem to think a battery electric car is the latest and greatest and are prepared to drop their hard-earned cash on one. It's usually only after they've lived with it for a few months that they realise just how impractical they are, unless they're fortunate enough to be able to charge on the driveway overnight, perhaps. But even then, the depreciation will be catastrophic compared to a regular car, and insurance will likely be more expensive as well. So for those of you even considering a battery vehicle, let the following story be a lesson to you. Chris Haslam, travel writer at The Times, explains, "My annual circumnavigation of mainland Britain and Northern Ireland presented the perfect opportunity to try to prove that it was not only possible, but, ideally, a breeze to complete a 4-week road trip in an electric van. Volkswagen thought so too, lending me an all-electric ID Buzz 5-seater van in two-tone candy white and bay leaf green for the duration. The specs were impressive as its surfy two-tone looks, an 84 kilowatt-hour battery that charged from 5 to 80% in as little as 30 minutes and claimed a maximum range of up to 293 miles. The job was to survey the English, Welsh, Scottish and Northern Irish coasts, a distance of some 4,800 miles, but since I had the entire month of May to complete the journey, I set a maximum of 240 miles a day, leaving a minimum 53-mile safety buffer within which to find a charger for my anticipated daily 30-minute top-up. That may sound overcautious, but over the 16 years I've been doing this journey, I've seen loads of old service stations closed down, but never seen a new one open. All seemed to be going well, at least for the first few hours. This year's circumnavigation began in Cleethorpes. I had to start it somewhere, so I started it there. My first charging experience in the Meridian Point Retail Park took a little longer than I expected, but I put it down to first night nerves and used my extended stay to give the resort more of a going over than it really needed. But then reality started to bite as Chris rolled up to a charging station supposed to be 300 kilowatts, thinking it would charge in minutes, and learned the first harsh rule of EV ownership and public charging after wondering whether he'd even have time for a coffee given the charger's massive claimed performance. I did, as it happens. I had time in theory for a 2-bottle lunch, a chapter of Ulysses and a long kip, because a 300 kilowatt charger does not necessarily charge at 300 kilowatts. It can charge at up to 300 kilowatts, in the same way that broadband providers promise your connection will operate at up to the speed of light. Possible in theory, but extremely unlikely. First off, few EVs can draw 300 kilowatts. The Audi e-tron, the Porsche Taycan and the Volvo EX90 are among the exceptions, but the VW ID Buzz pulls only 185 kilowatts. Second, if the battery is too cold or too warm, you won't even get 50 kilowatts. Ditto if the battery is almost empty. Third, your charge could be slower than advertised because, there are other drivers charging, or it's a Monday and there are 5 crows perched in the lightning tree, or the cows are lying down. I didn't know this yet. I was simply excited to be plugging in, swiping my card and then watching in wonder as the output display rocketed from 5 kilowatts to 41 kilowatts, and stayed there. According to the van, it was going to take 2 hours and 49 minutes to reach 80%. Even Dave T. Dog, the dog I presume, was dismayed. But imagine how quickly the sweet summer holiday dreams of a family would sour as they roasted in a van in the hot corner of the M5's Gordano services. Well, you've got to feel sorry for the poor guy, but this would be the experience of so many EV drivers who have turned up to a charging station expecting to charge in minutes and had to wait an hour or more. But it got worse. Much worse. And then another mystery arose. Because of the temperature, or some long-forgotten curse, or because the moon was in Leo, the range at the recommended 80% charge was now 233 miles, or 187 with the safety margin, meaning I would have to recharge twice in one day to cover the 274 miles and 18 beaches I was planning on inspecting between Woodbridge and Margate. The next day was worse. Despite beginning the day with a 90-minute top-up in a BP garage, the last 40 miles to Norman's Bay felt like a scene from the 1953 film The Wages of Fear. Coming through Winchelsea and East Sussex, the display said I had 31 miles worth of power with which to make the 25 miles to my campsite. But as I climbed the steep hill at Tanyard Lane, the range dropped to 21 miles, then recalculated when I reached the flat to 27 miles. Yeah, that's because a battery EV's range is ridiculously dependent on external factors and driving conditions. Whether you're travelling uphill or down dale, whether the wind is with you or against you, whether you've got the heater on or the air conditioner, even whether you've got the lights on. Of course, none of these things have any kind of significant effect on a regular car, at least not that you'd noticed. But apparently, we're all supposed to ignore that. The next morning, I crept the 6 miles into Eastbourne on the electrical equivalent of fumes, following the Electroverse app's directions to a high-speed charger in a Volvo dealership. How I laughed when they told me it was out of order, and how I chuckled again when I discovered that the trickle charger at the VW dealership, a tense half-mile away, would take 6 hours to bring me up to 80%. 6 freaking hours. This is the charging conundrum in full view, where charging time is inversely proportional to charging power. If you halve the power, you double the time. I'll leave you to read the rest of the article at the link in the description. It should put you off ever buying a battery electric vehicle. There's an EV rental company that claims one of the advantages of driving such a van is that it, quote, encourages slow travel, unquote. Seriously. And as the article concludes, that last claim is definitely true, and by the time I reached Weymouth, 2 days later than scheduled, I knew my plan had failed. It wasn't the van's fault. The ID Buzz is the prettiest vehicle VW has designed since the T2 split screen, a design classic begging to be customised. But I'm not sure the UK is ready for an all-electric touring van. I'd covered less than 15% of the 4,800 miles, and if I couldn't handle the range anxiety of the UK's soft south, how was I going to cope with the wilds of Wales and Scotland? So I admitted defeat, called VW and asked if it had anything that ran on diesel. It brought me a California camper van. It took 5 minutes to fill, had a range of 550 miles, an electric pop-up roof, and a fridge that looked great when I loaded it with beer. That's all you need to know. But I will try again. Well, between you and me, I don't think he will. Thanks very much for watching. Really hope you enjoyed it. If you've got any tips or stories, go there. If you'd like to watch another video, go there. If you'd like to buy me a coffee, go there, and please subscribe to the channel.